Hello and welcome to Mission Backlog. Hogwarts Legacy is the third review in this backlog playlist series. It's taken me a bit of time to get this review out due to the game being quite a long one and having been halfway through Spider-Man on the PS4 when this game released. Don't worry though, Spider-Man review is coming out next. Right, so I have quite a lot to say about this game. I do like the game, I'd even say it's great at times, but there's also a fair few negatives and I almost dropped off it at one point. It's certainly been a bit of a love-hate relationship. I would be berating the developers 1 minute for the mundane middle chapter and repetitive dialogue, then praising them the next for the truly stunning world and hectic and impressive combat moments. I guess the biggest indication to my thoughts are that I'm still playing the game now after beating the story and writing this review. I've put in around 30 hours now, during which I've beaten the main story and I'm now clearing up some of the main side quests that look interesting and aiming for the true ending where the credits roll. Gotta see those credits. So the story is arguably the most important part of the game, being as the entire game is based on one of the most popular series of books and storytelling to have ever existed, Harry Potter. I can tell you that the story is decent, nothing groundbreaking, but perfectly adequate to build a game around, and it certainly had me interested to see how it all turned out. It's very predictable though, and doesn't take any risks, which may have been a deliberate choice to not put the hardcore Harry Potter fans off, I don't know. You start out as a 5th year pupil at Hogwarts. You of course have unique abilities that no one else does. How else could you write a fantasy story? There are some evil people trying to get their hands on powerful dark magic, and you are the only person that can save the day. A school pupil, obviously. There's a little more to it than that, but really, that's it. You go to classes, do other studenty things, then rampage off through the surrounding lands, murdering goblins and other witches and wizards in their droves. Apparently, the Cruciatus curse is unforgivable, but levitating people and burning them alive, like man-sized toasted marshmallows, is absolutely fine. The main character is certainly going to need some therapy after all this is over. You get to design your character, which is nice, and does give you a feeling that you're actually heading to Hogwarts yourself. I'm not a huge character creator, I usually only take a couple of minutes and would rather just get into the game, so I can't speak too much to the amount of options, but it seemed alright to me. Once you've made your character, you're thrust right into the action, with an opening few hours that exceeded my expectations, with some action-packed story sequences and your arrival at Hogwarts itself. Hogwarts is truly stunning. Magical, you might say. With so much detail crammed in there, you could literally spend hours just wandering the halls and be entertained. Fans of Harry Potter will absolutely love it, and it may be worth the cost of purchase just for this. Unfortunately, this early pace falters quite quickly with a painfully slow middle act, which is where I almost gave up on the game. The tutorial period extends for a ridiculous 15 plus hours, during which you have to repeatedly attend classes where you really don't do much or interact with anyone, and complete arbitrary checklists for your teachers to learn new spells and get drip-fed the base mechanics of the game, such as upgrading your gear, which happened for me, quite a fast player, at the 15-hour mark. Now you may be thinking, well, what do you expect from a Hogwarts game? I agree. I was looking forward to the social aspect of the game, being one of my favourite aspects of the books when I read them as a kid. But there aren't any social aspects. You don't really build relationships or chat to students. You can't piss people off. There aren't students like Malfoy that you build grudges against. It's all just a bit flat. Even the dialogue options you have during missions don't seem to actually do anything, just ending up at the same result. I made a major decision at the end of the game, just to see what would happen. And what happened? Nothing. Absolutely nothing. So just be aware that if you are hoping for a social sim element to this game, it's not there. Now some people may not be as impatient as I am, probably quite a few people. Those who love to do every single side mission as they go may not even notice how slow the middle act is. But for those that are more like me, just be aware you may have to bulldoze your way through this achingly long tutorial section to get to the gold on the other side. Thankfully, once you do, the game picks back up again, and the final act had me hooked once more, with dramatic and varied mission designs and a full arsenal of spells to wreak havoc with. Even though you don't have any influence on how the story ends, it does have a satisfactory conclusion, with the build-up of tension and boss battles as you might expect. The world you get to explore is sensational. with familiar locations such as Hogsmeade, full of charm and character, as well as dungeons, the Forbidden Forest, and brilliant vistas wherever you look. I particularly liked it when the seasons changed partway through the game and everywhere was suddenly covered in snow. If only there was a photo mode. When you're not at Hogwarts, you'll spend the majority of your time in combat or solving the plethora of puzzles littered across the map. I feel a bit sorry for completionists with this one. The combat is based on a spellcasting system, with your choice of 4 spells making up a spell set. You can then switch between these spell sets depending on the situation you're in or the enemies you're facing. The combat follows the tried and tested format of different coloured enemies requiring the corresponding colour to defeat them. In this case, red for damage, yellow for control, and purple for force. So it makes sense to have one of each on any given spell set. You unlock a fair few spells, which does allow a fair bit of experimentation. For example, one of my favourite setups was to pull surrounding enemies to me with Accio, set them on fire with Incendio, levitate them, and finally blast them with Bombarda. There are multiple combinations you can play around with, and your basic attack, that's always equipped, can be used to inflict damage and maintain combos while spells are recharging. You can also hurl objects, such as barrels and anvils at enemies, or even turn an enemy into an explosive barrel and hurl them at their friends. What a way to go. Of course, being a wizard, you also have access to potions, which do all of the things you would expect, as well as magical plants that you can grow at Hogwarts and deploy in battle to aid you, like a chomping cabbage. All the time in battle you are building your special meter, which is your unique ability as the Chosen One, and when full allows you to unleash a devastating attack on a single enemy for a very satisfying and often brutal insta-kill. The combat is really enjoyable, and I found my time in combat to be the most enjoyable parts of the game. It's not the most difficult, and it is quite accessible, which I think makes sense for this game, though there is a bit of depth there. It can certainly get very hectic at times, and I may have died a few times during my playthrough. It reminds me of the Batman Arkham and Assassin's Creed combat to a certain extent, as you can parry or dodge on clearly indicated cues, but then have all the spellcasting systems built on top of that. All in all, decent combat. I just wish there was a bit more of it. Puzzles are also quite a large part of the game, especially if you're keen on going for all the collectibles. They're quite simple on the whole, with pretty obvious solutions. They may involve lighting a certain number of torches, rebuilding structures, parkouring across some rocks, or moving giant boulders, a la Indiana Jones, into kind of these stone dishes. Some of the puzzles are part of missions, though on the whole they're scattered across the open world as Merlin trials. Completing these and getting other collectibles unlocks cosmetics and buffs that can be used to improve your gear. Just don't do what I did and not realise until after you've completed the story that you can claim rewards in the collectibles tab of the menu. You'll also spend a ridiculous amount of time casting Revelio, a spell that reveals objects around you such as chests and materials. If you want to find anything, you'll be casting this every 10 seconds, as it's essential for finding certain collectibles, which are invisible otherwise. It's an alright idea. As an improvement, I would just make it so that objects stayed revealed, so you don't have to spam again and again, and even though you can upgrade the radius, maybe just make the radius a bit larger. Looping back to earlier, when I was talking about the 15-hour tutorial, a lot of what you'll be unlocking during that period is elements within the Room of Requirements. This is the room from the Harry Potter books and films that gives the user what they want. And in this case, it's a hub area for making potions, growing kind of magical plants, and storing and breeding magical beasts. Now for some people, this will be a highlight of the game, with customizable decorations, placeable items, and paintings. You can change the colour of everything, and many of which you can unlock through other systems in the game, so everything connects together. You could spend hours customizing your room with your own personality. On top of that, there's the bee system, where you catch magical creatures out in the open world and release them into your magical sanctuary. You can then brush and feed them to gather magical ingredients from them to use in upgrades on your clothing and armour and stuff, and you can even breed the animals as well. Now all of this really could be a game in itself, and though not something I personally want to sink much time into, I can see some people capturing every animal and breeding them all and having a great time doing it. This game certainly has a lot of different things to do and a lot of systems to get used to. The good thing is, a few of them are essential, so if you want, you can focus on what you enjoy the most. Visually, I'd have to say the game is pretty stunning. I played through the Xbox Series X and had the settings to performance mode to get the highest frame rate, as I always do. Even though it wasn't on the quality setting, the game looked great and looked like a true next-gen game. There were several moments that I just stopped and admired the view, and the particle effects and animations during combat are sublime. When it comes to sound, they've done a pretty damn good job. The voice acting is solid throughout, and the music nails that magical fantasy world vibe, with great tonal change-ups between locations. The one downside when it comes to sound is the annoyingly repetitive dialogue. Whenever you visit locations, there's the same dialogue. Whenever you fast travel, there's the same dialogue. Your character will repeat the same lines over and over again during missions. It all just gets a little bit irritating after a while. For a brand new AAA game, it's pretty stable on the bugs and glitches front as well. I haven't experienced any crashes during my 30 hours with the game, and the glitches I have seen are all fairly minor really. One was that whenever I had a cutscene with Professor Fig in his office, which happens quite a lot early in the game, his skin would glitch out with kind of like a tearing pattern. It would kind of take you out of the moment quite a lot. The other fairly common one was my character's cape distorting and getting stuck in very weird and unnatural shapes. So nothing major, just things that kind of take you out of the moment a bit. And I really was quite impressed considering the state that most games release in these days.
Revelio.
So for me, this is a pretty tricky one to rate, and my opinions have bounced around like a pinball during my playthrough. Overall though, I'd say this is a fantastic realisation of the Harry Potter universe, with stunning environments to explore, a decent story, and satisfying combat. Yes, I think the pacing is off, and there are some annoyances throughout. It's not a perfect game. But having put 30 hours in, I'm still keen to jump back in and play through some more side quests, so I think that says a lot. I'm going to be on the generous side and give Hogwarts Legacy an 8 out of 10. I was debating between a 7 and an 8. I'd say this game has something to offer for most gamers, and is utterly essential for any Harry Potter fans. My next review will be Spider-Man on the PS4, which got pushed back to play Hogwarts Legacy. I'm looking forward to getting back to web slinging my way around New York, and if you want to see what else is coming up on the backlog playlist, check out the playlist video. Thank you for watching, and please drop a like if you've enjoyed the video, it does help a lot. I hope you all have a great day. Now on to the next one.